Hello everyone, my name is Joshua Mockett. I am a 22-year-old professional photographer based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I've been behind a camera since I was 10 years old, and on this channel I'm going to be doing a lot of tips and tricks on workflow. In Lightroom, it's going to be behind the scenes, a lot of wildlife content. I am co-owner of two companies, one being All Out Safaris, an award-winning luxury private safari company hosting safaris in Kruger National Park, Sabi Sands, Pilanesberg National Park, and Modikwe Game Reserve. And the other company is Gianni Creative Studio, where we are professional photographers and videographers specializing in weddings, portraits, commercial, and event photography. So enjoy. Today we've got a special video where we are going through the workflow on how to create a dramatic, moody, black and white image for wildlife photographers, where we transform a pretty average image of a massive male lion into something spectacular, ideal for canvases and decorating your home. Enjoy. Righty, okay, so today we are going to be going through a image of a very special male lion from the Kruger National Park known as the South Sishangeni male lion. So he's now, can you believe it, looking at this photo, he's 15 years old, right? So he is arguably the biggest lion in the history of the Kruger National Park. I mean, he's been seen taking down buffalo on his own, smaller giraffes on his own. To put into perspective how big he is, when he's on his haunches, his head is the height of the wing mirror of an SUV. He is huge. I can't imagine how big he was 5-6 years ago. I saw him about 3 years ago, and even then, I mean, when he walked past our SUV, he was just under the height of the wing mirror. I mean, it's ridiculous how big he is. It really is. According to most sources, including myself, he is the biggest lion that has ever been documented in the Kruger, estimated to be at least 300 kilograms. I don't know how much that is in pounds, but it's ridiculous. So today we are going to be turning this photo into a very dramatic, very moody, fine art black and white photo. So there's so many different ways to go about it. This is a way that I would say is probably the easiest and probably the most reliable. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to be turning it from this into this, right? Something similar. This has got a slight bluer tone. I mean, you can go sepia, you can go sort of that split tone, which is slightly blue. So the darks are sort of blue, the lights are sort of yellow, but very, very, very subtle. Here, this isn't quite split tone. So to show you what split tone is, I'm going to take this image. So, by the way, this is actually said to be his grandson. So, South Sishangeni is related to the Mjujan males, who anyone who knows the south of Kruger know they are absolute units. And this is their son, known as the Lukimbi male, but they formed a coalition. South Sishangeni used to be with the Eastern Bank male, who was also quite the tank. But so to show you quickly what split tone looks like, you have, this is split tone, so it's sort of blue. There's so many different ways you can do it. Then sepia is sort of that brown, and then you've got your standard monochrome. But today we will be working on doing it from scratch. So usually, like, we have presets that we use for our wildlife and our portraits and wedding and lifestyle photography. So here I would have gone and I would have used this preset. I would have gone and then just darkened the image, because obviously that looks quite good already. But like I said, we're going to be doing this all from scratch. So first thing you want to do, so it obviously depends what you're wanting to do with your image. So for an Instagram story, you're going to want to be using 16:9 crop. For a portrait post on Instagram, you want to use 4:5, and for printing, which is the crop we're going to be using for this, is 4:3. That is the best crop you can use for printing. It's the most accurate. And yeah, so we're going to apply the rule of thirds here. So the rule of thirds is you've got 3 by 3 blocks, and where all of those lines intercede are the points where you want the focus of your image to be. So obviously this line is looking straight at the camera, so we want it to be more central. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to keep him in the middle, and I want his eyes to be on this top splitting line here. So that's the crop that we're going to go for. So the very next thing is you want to convert the image to black and white. The very last thing you want to be doing is taking the saturation slider and making it black and white. You want to go and change the actual color profile to black and white. So the reason for that is if you change it to a black and white color profile, you've still got access to all the different colors within the photo. Obviously it looks black and white, but there's still color profiles. So you've got your greens that you can adjust, because this now is just luminance that this is changing. Your purples, there's not really purples, but there's a lot of blues in this photo, for example, where if you were to keep it in the normal color and drop the saturation, you now don't have access to those color profiles. You see, I'll change the luminance of the yellow and nothing happens. So we are going to keep it in the black and white color profile. All right, I should actually be using my mouse, but anyway. So first thing, we are going to do our global adjustment. So the basic workflow goes crop, global adjustments, localized adjustments, sharpening. I am going to put this image also into Topaz AI, and I will go through the sharpening of that, but we'll go slightly more in depth on that on another video, where Topaz's denoise is also very, very good. So we'll put that into play. Actually, no, we'll leave Topaz for this video, and then I will use a different image to showcase what Topaz can do. All right, so to start here, we are going to fix the exposure. So obviously the image is overexposed, so we're going to do this. You can hold the Option key. On Mac it's Option, on Windows it's the Alt key, and by doing that you can see sort of, okay, that's now blown out, etc. Right, so you just want to actually see sort of what's comfortable to work with. Remember, we want this to be quite dark and moody, so that's what we're going to be playing with here. All right, so that's I'm kind of happy with that. I might make it slightly lighter. All right, so next we are going to do highlights and shadows. You could play with the tone curve as well. By the way, I'm using normal Lightroom here. I'm not using Lightroom Classic, but the control and all the panels are exactly the same. So you can just apply this to that. So I like starting with whites and blacks and then adjusting highlights. All right, whites and blacks are a lot stronger than highlights and shadows, and I feel like it just, for me, it's the workflow that works better. So with the blacks, you're going to hold your black slider, you're going to hold the Option key. You see now you've got all these little bits of black showing up. So that's the bit where there's like now no detail within that black, right? So for me, like here, it's fine. So we can fix that with the shadows, right? Well, not really, it's already too black, but we want it a bit more. So we're going to make the blacks blacker by just darkening them a little bit, and then you just without holding the Option key, you can sort of see what it's actually doing to the image. So I'm happy with that. That's fine. Then we're going to go to the white section and lift that up. You can see the whites are a lot less overpowering in this image, and you want there to be high contrast, right? Fine art, when it comes to wildlife photography, look, it's very subjective. So fine art to some people is different to other people. So I like using the term dramatic here, moody, instead of fine art, because it can be quite subjective. So here we are going to just make sure we're happy with the white. Sorry, I'm going to use the trackpad. It's just a bit easier for this here. I'm happy with that. So here is a bit blown out, but we'll fix that. So I'll take the shadow slider now. You do the same. You can try and get rid of as much of that, but when it's super dark, you're not going to recover the detail, and that's fine. The detail here isn't the most imperative part of this image. All right, so I will lift the shadows a little bit, just a little bit, and then the highlights I'll also play with just a bit. So you'll see now the line almost seems a bit light And that's fine, because I will now start darkening the image a little bit more. So now you can see it's really starting to get quite dramatic. So that's before and that's after. So look, it was taken in fantastic golden light. I have edited this as a color image before, but I am getting this printed at some point, I think for a golf day prize later this year. We're doing some canvas prints. So one of these, well, this is one of the images that will be printed. So yeah, so look, this is great. We are happy. I'm happy now with the exposure here. I don't usually play with the contrast slider. I prefer to actually use these panels here. You can also play with the tone curve a little bit. I tend to not use it as much as I would this panel. So that's that. So if we want the background to be a little bit darker, so we're going to have to sort of change this to color. Right, so you can see there's a lot of blues. Excuse the fact that it now looks horrendous. Oops. Right, there's a lot of blues there, and there's quite a bit of green. So we're going to go back to the black and white color profile. I'm going to take the greens, I'm going to darken them a little bit, and we're going to take the blues and we're going to darken them. So that already makes the line pop a little bit more. But well, you'll see what we're going to do now. So you'll see some of this still seems a bit dark. This seems slightly light. We are going to fix that. This bit here seems a bit dark, and this little bit here seems a bit dark as well. So we're going to adjust that as the video goes on. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. You can play around with the yellows a bit. So I'm actually okay with dropping a bit of the yellows, because the lion, believe it or not, is more in the orange, on the orange side of things, right? So we're going to get that back to where it was, and we're going to start dropping the yellows a little bit. So now he's popping a bit more. We'll actually make it less. The greens will lighten as well, and that's fine. The image we can actually make a little bit lighter for now. For now, we'll make the image a little bit lighter. All right, so I'm so far pretty happy with that. I want to sort of just taint this down a little bit. That's fine. All right, so if we look at before and after, obviously massive difference. So now we're going to go into our overall masking. So first off, we are going to do the masking on the background. So with the background, so I want to make the background sort of flat, not too flat, but flat enough that the line is just going to pop a lot more. And I'm not going to drop the color of the background too much, or lift the lightness of the lion too much either. But we're going to select our subject here, let AI on Lightroom do its work. So you can see it selected the subject fantastically well. So we're going to play with the effects. So I usually just lift the texture a little bit. It's usually not really much more than 10. So it's not much, but you'll see how it will add up. The clarity, I'll play with tiny bits. I don't use it much. Dehaze, I'm not going to touch now. And then the sharpening, I'll lift to around, maybe not quite, no, 25 is fine. All right, so overall, pretty happy with that. Looks good, can't complain. Okay, so now that that's done, we are going to select the background. And what I'm going to do with the background, if we can adjust it here, I'm going to flatten the dehaze by dropping the dehaze. So that really starts flattening the color in the background. So you can see now how the line's popping. So you can see before dehaze and then after reducing the dehaze. So basically reducing the dehaze makes it more hazy in effect. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that here. And I am going to drop the highlights and lift the shadows, so that sort of flattens it. You can drop the exposure a bit, which does work, but we'll leave it neutral for now. And I'm pretty happy with that. So this little bit here, that's a bit black. So now these little tweaks, we are going to just get a normal adjustment brush, and we're going to paint over those and then make those adjustments. So I'm going to go and I'm going to select a brush here. I'm going to zoom in. I'll make it a little bit smaller, and just going to select these little bits that I want to be slightly lighter. So all I'm going to do is lift the shadows on them. You can lift the exposure a little bit, that also works. And then we'll do the same to this section here. You can see the difference that's going to make. I might actually create a new brush for this little section. Let's just see how this looks when I've when I zoom out. I'm all right with that. I'll just drop the shadows a bit more. That's fine. And then you can apply it here. It's not going to make a difference because these blacks are a little bit too black, but you are recovering a little bit of detail on some of these hairs in his mane. All right, so that looks good. That looks good. I'm happy with that. So look, I want to now make this a bit darker. So you'll never be, you can't always be completely happy with your exposure until the end of the photo. So I am going to just darken this a little bit, the image as a whole, and then I do want to just add a vignette before I forget. That just intensifies the focus on the lion. So there you have it. That's pretty straightforward. One thing you can do, which isn't necessary in this case, is sometimes you'll lighten the eyes of your subject. So for example, I've done that. I did that with this photo of this leopard. You can see how her eyes are just now made to pop a little bit more. But anyway, so that's that done. I'm pretty chuffed with that. So we can go to a before and an after. So that's the sort of an in-depth way on getting a good quality monochrome moody edit. And look, it's not, there's some images it's not going to work for. This image worked well because of how much difference there is in the background compared to the lion, and the lion was in light, where you can see here there's quite a bit of shade on the road behind him, so he pops out a lot more. Where here as well you can see half of his face is in shadow, half of it is not. So it's all about also understanding the light and what's sort of realistic and what's not with certain images. So you won't necessarily be able to turn this into a very dark, sort of low-key black and white edit, but then this obviously works very, very well. Alrighty, so that's it for this one. Pretty straightforward, but hope there's a lot that you guys can take from this video. Hope it's informative, and we'll see you in the next one. I think we're going to do a topaz video next, and hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one. Cool.